The grand alien palace was silent until Lady Vera entered. She was one of the richest women in the empire, feared and respected by all. But today, whispers followed her footsteps. Her daughter, Princess Alira, had been called before the court. Everyone knew Alira's secret. She had been declared infertile since birth. She could never carry life. Yet when Alira stepped into the glowing hall, nobles gasped. Her eyes were calm, but her form revealed the impossible. She was pregnant. Lady Vera's heart stopped. For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. Her voice broke the silence. This cannot be. How? And that was when the crowd turned to Alira, waiting for an answer that could shatter their entire world. The hall of the alien palace glowed with silver light, its tall crystal walls shining like frozen stars. Nobles filled the wide space, whispering to each other in quiet voices, their eyes sharp with curiosity. The air was thick with secrets, as if the whole court already knew something important was about to be revealed. At the center, a golden seat waited, not for a ruler but for one who would stand before judgment. Lady Vera, known across the empire as one of the wealthiest and most respected figures, entered with slow steps. Her long robes shimmered, each movement a display of her power and status. Normally, her presence would silence the crowd in awe, but today the whispers only grew louder. She could feel them on her back, words that she was not meant to hear, words about her daughter. Her eyes narrowed as she walked toward the front of the hall. The great doors opened again, and Princess Alira stepped inside. Her hood was low, shadowing her face, and her steps were quiet but steady. She had been away for months, sent to distant lands for study and travel. Many had not expected her to return so soon, and certainly not in this way. The nobles leaned forward, their eyes filled with doubt, their voices blending into a low storm of sound. Everyone in the palace knew Alira's story. From birth, she had been told a painful truth. Her body carried a flaw, one that the finest alien doctors could not correct. She was declared unable to ever carry a child. It was not only a personal tragedy, but also a shame for a family of such high standing. Whispers followed her everywhere, some calling her broken, others pitying her fate. Lady Vera had carried that weight for years, always shielding her daughter from cruel words. But today, something about Alira was different. The princess reached the center of the hall. She stood straight, her hands resting gently on the front of her robes. Slowly, almost with purpose, she lowered her hood. Gasps filled the hall. The nobles rose slightly from their seats, their eyes wide, some with disbelief, some with open shock. Lady Vera froze where she stood, her lips parting, but no words leaving. There, before all of them, was the impossible. Alira's form showed a clear truth. She was expecting a child. The faint curve, the glow in her face, the quiet strength in her eyes, none of it could be hidden. A silence fell heavy over the court, broken only by a single sound. It was Lady Vera's voice, trembling yet sharp enough to reach every corner of the hall. This cannot be. How is this possible? The words hung in the air, and no one dared to answer. Nobles turned their eyes from mother to daughter, waiting for Alira to speak. Some looked horrified, others strangely curious, but all were caught in the same storm of disbelief. The empire's finest doctors had confirmed again and again that Alira could never bear life. And yet here she stood, carrying what should not exist. Alira lifted her head, her calm gaze meeting her mother's. For a moment, the two looked at each other as if the whole world had disappeared. Lady Vera's chest tightened, her heart beating faster than she wished to show. She had dreamed for years to see her daughter blessed with life, but the dream had always been impossible. Now, confronted with the sight, she felt both wonder and fear. The nobles whispered again, louder this time, "It must be false. No, look at her. It is true." But how? Who? The unspoken question grew heavy in the air. Who was the father? Lady Vera's mind raced. She knew no alien in the empire could have given this miracle to Alira. The doctors had said it was beyond their power. Then what force had touched her daughter? What secret was being kept from her? Alira's lips parted as if she would speak, but instead, she remained quiet, her hand brushing over her belly in a protective gesture. That one movement sent another wave of whispers through the crowd. Lady Vera's throat tightened. She wanted answers, but she could not ask here, not in front of so many watching eyes. She stepped forward, her robe trailing behind her. The golden light of the hall caught her face, showing the rare mix of pride and fear in her eyes. She stopped, close to Alira, her voice low enough for only a few to hear. "Alira, my daughter, is it true?" Alira did not look away. Her calm eyes held something her mother had never seen before, a strength that came not from titles or wealth but from something deeper, something personal. "It is true, mother," she said softly, her voice steady despite the weight of the hall pressing down on her. The words were gentle, but to Lady Vera, they were louder than thunder. She felt the room spin around her as nobles pressed forward, whispering and staring. She wanted to shield her daughter, to take her away from all those eyes, but at the same time, she herself needed answers. The silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of the glowing crystal walls. For the first time in her long life, Lady Vera did not know whether to feel joy or fear. All she knew was that everything in their world had just changed, and the secret her daughter carried would shake the empire to its core. Lady Vera could not rest that night. The grand palace was quiet, its glowing corridors empty, yet her mind was full of questions that refused to fade. She walked slowly through her private chambers, the soft sound of her steps echoing against crystal floors every time she closed her eyes. She saw her daughter standing in the court, her calm face, her steady hands, and the impossible truth revealed before the nobles. Alira was carrying life when all the stars had once said she never could. When she finally entered Alira's room, the princess was sitting by the tall window, looking out at the city of lights below. The stars above the empire's capital shimmered, but her daughter's gaze seemed far away, as if she was thinking not of the sky but of something deeper. Lady Vera paused at the door, unsure of what words to use. She had faced emperors, traitors, and rival nobles, but she had never felt so uncertain as she did before her own child, Alira. She began softly, her voice more fragile than she wanted. "Tell me the truth. I need to hear it from you, without the eyes of the court upon us." The princess turned her head slowly. Her face held no fear, only calm. Yet behind her calmness was a secret so heavy that it made the room feel colder. She placed a hand over her belly, the same gentle gesture she had done before, and her voice came low but clear. "Mother, the child is real. I did not believe it myself at first, but it grows stronger each day." Lady Vera stepped closer, her rich robes brushing against the floor, and sat beside her daughter. She reached out, her fingers trembling as if afraid to touch what was now true. For years, she had dreamed of this moment, but she had never thought it possible. "Alira, how? Who is responsible for this?" The princess lowered her eyes for a long moment, then whispered, "It is because of him, the human." The words struck the mother like a sudden wave. A human. She had heard of them, strange beings from a small blue world, often dismissed as simple, unrefined, and fragile compared to the proud alien races. Yet her daughter spoke the word with quiet respect, as if it meant far more. Lady Vera searched her daughter's face for any sign of doubt, but she saw only truth. "You mean to tell me," Vera said slowly, her voice shaking, "that a human gave you what no one else could?" Alira nodded. "When I stayed on Earth, I met him. He listened when no one else did. He did not see me as broken. He only saw me as myself. I never imagined this would happen, but it did. And now," she paused, her eyes shining faintly as if caught between fear and joy. "Now the child lives, and it is his." The mother pulled in a sharp breath. The idea was unthinkable. Alien doctors had studied Alira since her birth. They had declared her body closed to life, her future empty of children. Yet somehow, this human had touched something no alien science could. It made no sense, but the proof was before her, growing stronger every day. Outside the window, the city lights flickered like stars fallen to the ground, but inside the room, silence stretched. Lady Vera's heart battled between two worlds, her pride as a noble mother and her fear of the scandal this secret would bring. The court would not accept such news. The nobles already whispered of disgrace, and if they learned the father was human, the whispers would turn to outrage. "Alira," she said at last, her voice low and heavy, Do you understand what this means? If the council learns the truth, they may not see this child as a miracle. They may call it a threat. Her daughter's eyes grew firm. Then let them call it what they wish. I will not hide this life, mother. This child is mine, and I will protect it. The words carried a strength Lady Vera had never heard from her before. Her daughter, once quiet and often shadowed by shame, now spoke with a voice that refused to bend. For the first time, Vera realized that Alira was no longer a child waiting to be defended. She was a mother now, and the life inside her had given her a courage greater than any noble title. Vera leaned back, her chest heavy with both fear and wonder. She thought of the human, a figure she had never met, but who had changed everything, a being from a distant world, not powerful or wealthy, yet able to give her daughter what no empire of doctors and scholars had achieved. She could not decide if she should despise him or thank him. The night stretched long, the silence between mother and daughter carrying more weight than words. Finally, Vera whispered, almost to herself, if this is true, then the stars themselves have turned toward you. But the court will not forgive so easily. You must be ready, Alira. The whispers in the hall were only the beginning. Alira placed her hand on her belly once more, her gaze steady on her mother. I am ready. This child is not only mine, mother. This child belongs to the future. Lady Vera felt a chill run through her, as if destiny itself had stepped into the room with them. She could not yet see the path ahead, but she knew one thing with certainty: her daughter's secret would not remain hidden for long. And when it was revealed, the empire would never be the same again. Far away from the glowing chambers of the palace, in a quiet corner hidden from the watchful eyes of nobles, a man waited. His name was Daniel, a human who had walked among the stars only by chance, yet now carried a secret that could change entire worlds. He kept himself in the shadows, moving carefully, for he knew the truth. If the court learned of his presence, the whispers would turn into storms, and the storms could sweep both him and Alira away. Still, he could not leave. His heart was tied to hers, and more than that, to the small life now growing within her. Daniel remembered the first time he met Alira, not as a princess draped in royal colors, but as a quiet soul who carried an invisible weight. They had walked together under Earth's skies, where stars looked smaller, but dreams somehow felt larger. She had spoken softly that night, her voice trembling as she revealed her greatest sorrow. She could never carry life. He had listened, not as a scholar or a healer, but simply as a man who cared. In that moment, he had promised her nothing but his presence. He never imagined that promise would lead here, to something every alien doctor had sworn impossible. Now, standing behind the tall crystal walls of the empire, he felt the weight of what they had created. His very existence in this place was a risk. To the nobles, he would be seen as unworthy, an intruder from a world they considered small. Yet Alira had chosen him, and the life she carried was proof of a bond no noble decree could erase. He closed his eyes, breathing in the quiet air of the palace gardens, where he hid most nights. Each sound reminded him how close danger was: the soft hum of guards, the distant voices of servants, the endless glow of alien lights that never truly allowed darkness. Still, in the middle of that uneasy calm, his thoughts stayed on Alira. Was she safe? Was the child safe? And how long could this secret remain hidden before the Empire's curiosity grew too sharp to contain? Inside, Lady Vera wrestled with her own fears, but Daniel felt the same battle outside the walls. He knew he could not remain hidden forever. Already, some had noticed a figure moving in shadows, a presence not belonging to their kind. He overheard whispers in the market when he dared to walk too close. Did you see him? He does not move like us. His eyes, his skin, they are different. He knew it would not be long before suspicion reached the court. That night, as the stars shifted above the city, Daniel stood beneath a carved stone arch, looking toward the tower where Alira rested. He longed to go to her, to assure her that, no matter how heavy the judgment of nobles became, she would not stand alone. But he also feared what his presence might bring if revealed too soon. He was torn between two truths: to protect her by staying hidden, or to protect her by standing openly at her side. He remembered the moment Alira placed his hand gently on her stomach weeks ago, her eyes shining in the faint light. "Do you feel that?" she had whispered, and though he had felt nothing beneath his palm, her voice had been enough to tell him the truth. Life had begun, a miracle beyond all explanation. That memory guided him now, giving him strength even as fear pressed against him like a heavy cloak in the palace. Rumors had already begun to swirl with more strength than the glow of the crystal lights. Servants whispered behind closed doors, their words spreading faster than fire. The nobles speculated in private gatherings, their voices sharp with suspicion. Who was the father? What secret had Alira hidden during her travels? And what force in the stars could have created such a miracle? None of them imagined the truth could be something as simple and as dangerous as a human. Daniel leaned against the cold stone wall, gazing at the horizon where the first light of morning touched the sky. He knew time was running out. Each day brought him closer to being discovered, and each day the child inside Alira grew stronger, a living truth that would not be hidden forever. He whispered into the quiet air, though no one was there to hear, "No matter what happens, I will not leave you. Not her, not our child." And as the morning sun rose, casting its first rays through the crystal towers of the alien empire, Daniel felt a strange certainty. The days of shadows were coming to an end. Soon, he would have to step forward, not just as a hidden figure in the palace gardens, but as the one who carried the other half of the miracle. The question was not if the court would discover him, but how they would react when they did, and whether love could survive the judgment of a world that had never welcomed his kind. The council chamber was filled with a glow that seemed colder than the light of the stars. Tall crystal pillars surrounded the great circle where nobles gathered, their robes shining in colors that marked their status. The air was heavy with expectation, as though even the walls leaned in to hear what would be said. At the center stood Alira, her hands folded calmly in front of her, while Lady Vera stood only a step behind, her expression caught between strength and fear. The nobles whispered to one another in voices that carried across the chamber. None of them looked at Alira with kindness. Some stared with curiosity, others with suspicion, and a few with open disapproval. For weeks, rumors had spread through the palace and across the city. Now the truth could no longer be hidden. The princess, once thought unable to bear life, stood before them carrying a secret that defied everything they believed. An elder of the council rose, his robes marked with golden threads of authority. His voice carried through the chamber, calm but sharp. "Princess Alira, you returned to us with news that cannot be ignored. For years, it was known you could not carry life, yet today, we are told the impossible grows within you. Tell this council, by what means has this come to pass?" The room grew silent. Every noble leaned forward, waiting for her answer. Alira raised her head and met their eyes without trembling. She did not speak quickly. Her calmness only deepened the tension, like a storm waiting just beyond the horizon. "The life I carry is real," she said at last, her voice soft yet clear. "It grows stronger each day. I cannot explain how the stars allowed what the doctors could not, but I will not deny what is true." A wave of whispers broke out, like the rustling of restless leaves. The elder lifted his hand for silence, but the chamber buzzed with voices. Some called it a blessing, others a danger. The nobles had no single thought, only a sea of questions. Lady Vera felt her chest tighten. She had expected this storm, but hearing it with her own ears still filled her with unease. She had prepared words of defense, but when she looked at her daughter, she saw a strength in her eyes that surprised her. Alira was not pleading for understanding. She was standing with quiet pride, as if she no longer needed approval to accept her truth. Another noble, a woman with silver bands along her robe, rose to her feet. Her voice carried sharp edges. "Princess, you speak of truth, yet you do not reveal all. This council will not rest until it knows the origin of this child. Who is the father? What blood flows in the life you carry?" The words struck the chamber like thunder. Silence followed, heavier than before. All eyes turned to Alira. Even Lady Vera felt her breath catch, for she knew the answer and feared the reaction it would bring. Alira's lips parted slightly, but she did not rush her reply. She let the silence stretch, as though she was measuring every breath, every gaze upon her. Her hand rested lightly over her belly, and her calmness deepened. Yet before she could answer, Lady Vera stepped forward. "The origin of this life is not for you to demand," she said, her voice steady though her heart raced. "It is enough to know that my daughter, who was once told she would never hold life, now carries a child. That alone should be cause for wonder, not suspicion." Her words carried dignity, but the chamber did not calm. Nobles exchanged glances, their whispers rising once more. Some nodded, their eyes thoughtful, while others frowned deeply, their faces marked by disapproval. The elder raised his hand again, silencing the room. "This matter cannot be hidden, Lady Vera," he said firmly. "The Empire must know whether this child is to be seen as a blessing or a threat. The Council will decide its place, but for that, truth must be spoken." Lyra looked at her mother, then at the faces around her. For the first time, her calm gaze flickered, not with fear, but with the weight of choice. She could reveal everything, or she could keep her silence. She knew the Council would not rest, but she also knew that one truth naming Daniel could bring danger upon him. Before the Empire was ready to hear it, the silence stretched again, longer this time. Every noble leaned forward, every breath in the chamber seemed to pause. Lady Vera placed her hand gently on her daughter's arm, a silent signal that the choice was hers to make. Lyra lifted her chin, her eyes steady once more. "This child," she said softly, "is not for judgment. It is not for debate. It is life, and it belongs to the future. Whatever questions you carry, the answer is the same. This child is mine." The chamber erupted again, louder than before. Some voices rose in protest, others in awe, and the storm of whispers became a wave that filled the space. Lady Vera stood tall beside her daughter, hiding her trembling hands. Beneath her robes, she knew the Council would not be satisfied with silence, but in that moment, she also knew her daughter had chosen her path, and somewhere in the shadows beyond the chamber, Daniel listened, unseen, his heart heavy with the knowledge that his name, his truth, was the one piece still hidden. He knew it could not remain so forever. That night, after the Council gathering, the palace was wrapped in silence, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence of a storm that had not yet broken. In her chamber, Lyra sat near the wide crystal window, her hands resting over her belly as she gazed at the stars beyond. The glow of the sky filled the room, soft and silver, but her thoughts were heavier than the night itself. She had spoken with strength, yet the echoes of the Council's questions still pressed upon her heart. Lady Vera entered quietly, her footsteps soft on the polished floor. She did not speak at once. Instead, she placed a warm shawl over her daughter's shoulders and stood beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They both knew words could not easily mend what had been shaken. At last, Lady Vera whispered, "You carried yourself with honor today, my child. But the Council will not rest. They will press harder, and the storm will grow. You must be ready." Lyra turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting her mother's. "I am ready," she said gently, though her voice carried an undertone of weariness. "But I fear for him. They search for answers, and if they learn of Daniel, he will not be safe." The name lingered in the room like a hidden flame. Lady Vera's lips tightened, for she knew the danger well. He must remain in the shadows. She said softly, "At least for now. Your truth will shake the Empire." But his truth, it could tear it apart. Before Lyra could reply, the quiet of the night was disturbed by a soft knock at the door. A servant entered with a deep bow, his expression careful. "My lady, a message has arrived. It was delivered without seal, but it carries urgency." He placed a folded piece of parchment on the table and withdrew quickly, leaving the two women alone once more. Lyra picked up the message. The handwriting was hurried, almost trembling, but the words were clear. "They are searching. Questions have already reached the outer courts. If Daniel is seen, he will be taken. Keep him hidden. Keep him safe." Her fingers trembled slightly as she read, though her face remained calm. She folded the parchment and set it aside, but her heart raced. "They are closer than I feared," she whispered. "Even shadows cannot protect him forever, lady." Vera reached for her daughter's hand, holding it tightly. Listen to me, Alira. You must not let fear break your spirit. If the nobles sense weakness, they will press harder. You carry more than life within you. You carry a future that no one yet understands. That is why they watch, why they question. Some may wish to protect you, but others will wish to control what you carry. Alira leaned her head against her mother's shoulder, closing her eyes for a moment. She longed for rest, for quiet days free from whispers and stares. But she knew such days would not come again. The path before her was no longer hers alone. The child she carried was at the center of a story far greater than herself. In another corner of the palace, Daniel waited in the shadows of a hidden passage. He had heard the whispers, seen the unrest in the city, and felt the weight of secrecy pressing harder each day. Every time the nobles demanded answers, his heart tightened. He wanted to step forward, to stand beside Alira openly, but he knew the cost. For now, his place was in silence, watching, protecting from afar. The night deepened, and though the palace stood still, it felt as if every stone carried the weight of unspoken truths. Alira finally rose from her seat by the window. She touched her mother's hand once more and whispered, "Whatever storm comes, I will not let it take this child. Even if the stars themselves turn against me, I will keep this life safe." Her words were soft, but they carried a strength that reached beyond the room. Lady Vera looked at her daughter, and for the first time in many years, she felt hope, stirring stronger than fear. The storm had not yet broken, but when it did, she believed Alira would not face it alone. The morning sun rose over the alien capital, casting soft golden light across the palace towers. Yet inside the council hall, there was no warmth. The nobles gathered once again, their expressions sharp with questions that had grown heavier since the last meeting. Lady Vera walked with her daughter toward the great chamber, their steps echoing on the marble floor. Alira kept her head high, though her heart carried the weight of every whisper she had heard in the corridors. When the great doors opened, silence swept across the hall. Rows of nobles turned their eyes toward her. Some looked with curiosity, others with fear, and a few with hidden envy. At the center, the High Speaker of the Council rose from his seat, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. "Princess Alira," he said in a measured voice, "we have gathered again, for your presence has stirred questions that cannot be ignored. You carry life when all records declared it impossible. The people demand to know who is the father of the child you bear." The words hung heavy in the air. Alira felt every gaze pressing against her, but she did not falter. She took a slow breath and stepped forward. "I carry this life not as a curse, but as a gift," she said softly, her voice carrying through the hall. "The stars chose a path that none of us expected, and yet, must I name the father when the truth of this child lies not in who, but in what future it may bring?" Her answer was calm, but it sent ripples of unrest through the chamber. Murmurs filled the air, some voices praising her strength, others demanding clarity. The High Speaker's eyes narrowed. "Words cannot protect you forever, Princess. The Council must know the truth, for the future of our empire depends upon it." Lady Vera stepped forward then, her presence commanding silence. She placed a protective hand on her daughter's arm and faced the council. "My daughter owes you no confession today. What she carries is beyond your measures, beyond your laws. Do not mistake silence for weakness. The child within her is proof that life cannot be bound by decrees or records. If you seek to understand, then watch, for time itself will reveal the truth." The chamber grew restless. Some nobles whispered that Alira's words carried wisdom, others that Lady Vera sought to protect a scandal. The uncertainty spread like smoke through the hall. Finally, the High Speaker raised his hand, demanding quiet once more. His voice was grave when he spoke again. "Then we will wait. But hear this: if the child is born and the truth dishonors our people, the Council will act. No secret remains hidden forever." Alira lowered her gaze, her heart heavy, but her spirit unbroken. She knew the storm was not ending, it was only beginning. Yet as she left the chamber, walking beside her mother, she felt something stronger than fear rising within her. She carried life, she carried change, and though the Empire questioned her, she would not let them shape her story. That night, While the council's words still echoed across the city, Daniel remained hidden in the quiet passageways of the palace. He had heard enough to know the danger was close. Yet as he looked toward the chamber where Alira had stood so bravely, a thought filled his heart. Soon, he could not remain a shadow. The time would come when he would have to step into the light no matter the cost.